Meanwhile, here to discuss this and more is retired four-star general, Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute of Study Award, General Jack Keane. General, there were talks yesterday between Witkoff, Kushner, and a member of the Board of Peace. Now they're going to move these talks over to Abu Dhabi. The Witkoff says we're down to one major issue. Do you see progress according to your sources?
Well, I think there has been some progress when you look back to 2 months with the 28-point deal, which certainly favored Russia, and where we got down to 20 points, and then the progress since that time, in the ensuing 7 weeks or so. I do think there's been some progress made, to get down to what is now publicly announced is one issue, and it deals with the land and likely the Donbass region. So, yeah, that's certainly progress. And a lot of work had to be done on the security guarantees, in terms of how do we make certain that Russia is deterred from a future attack if there is a peace agreement, and so that it's enduring and lives beyond the Trump administration, and certainly being approved by the Congress of the United States and the other parliaments that are participating as the coalition of the willing is one of the major factors in all of that. So that took a lot of work. But I think, where are we really? I think we're kind of where we have always been. 11 months ago, Zelensky said yes to a ceasefire, temporary, unconditional. And Putin has never agreed to that. And certainly we've been working on the big peace agreement, not the small ceasefire, in all of these months. And he has been the obstacle. And we're reading in the public media that coming out of Moscow, he did not budge on any concessions on the land. But the uniqueness of the meeting in Abu Dhabi in the UAE is that all three parties are participating, the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia together, as opposed to being separate. So if that happens, is there going to be some concessions made there? Remains to be seen. I am highly skeptical. I think Russia is about stalling with negotiations and continuing to stall, promise that we will make a deal. We're real sincere about it. But at the end of the day, no deal. That's where we have been with Mr. Putin.
Yeah, and by the way, General, I want to move on and get some Iran in, but I do want to point out that President Zelensky just ripped Europe yesterday. He said, what are you going to do if Lithuania is invaded? Anything? What did you do in 2020 when Belarus rose up against Lukashenko? Anything? Nothing. What are you still buying oil from Russia? When are you going to act when it comes to Iran? So he just kind of had it. He goes, you spend all your time trying to change Trump. But what is Trump doing? Trump is coming up with a peace plan in Gaza. He's the one shuttling back and forth trying to bring a peace plan to Russia. He's the one who's got to deal with Iran. I see nothing from Europe, and Zelensky echoes that. Speaking of that, President Trump was asked about Iran yesterday, and he says, we're sending an armada their direction, but he goes, I don't know if we're going to have to use it. Do you think we're going to have to use it, and do you think we should?
Well, first of all, just dealing with what you were introducing there, Zelensky is very frustrated with the Europeans, particularly over the frozen $300 billion Russian assets that they won't release that would significantly help him economically, to be sure. And also the fact that they're still buying Russian oil and they won't help to take down the shadow fleet that Russia is using to sell their oil on the open market and get around the sanctions that are being imposed on them. And the rest of the things that you added on, it adds to his frustration with them. But in terms of Iran, the president said he was going to hold them accountable for killing their own people. Conservative human rights organizations say anywhere from 5,000 to about 16,000 have been killed. And we know there's 22 to 26,000 in prison. And likely, as soon as the spotlight is removed from Iran, they will systematically begin to hang them, just like they did when we had 22,000 in prison after the June war, the 12-day war, and they hung 1,500. That, I think, is the path we're on. Yes, the president should use the military capability here to further weaken this regime, which is at the weakest point it's ever been in 45-plus years, politically, economically, militarily. And that would support the protesters. I think they would be back out on the street again after a strike, to be sure. The president has said that he's interested in changing the leadership in Iran. And I believe a strike will put it on a path to the regime collapsing. And I think that's necessary. The option is obviously on the table with the assets being moved into the region. And so we'll see where we are. I believe the president is a person of his word. He said he was going to do it. I'm assuming he's going to do it.
All right, General, we'll keep our eye on it. We'll certainly have the firepower there shortly. And Israel has plenty of time to get ready and get into defensive posture, too. General Jack Keane, thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.